Okay, greetings and welcome everyone back to Let's Talk About It Sports. Here with your host, Rashad Bakure. I am wanting to just drop a quick segment on Coach Marcus Freeman of Notre Dame, Fighting Irish, and race identity. Now, ever since Notre Dame has pulled off its victory, especially when they beat Georgia, the topic of the media running has, in the mainstream media, corporate media, particularly ESPN to be exact, with the narrative towards, first it was towards the first time you're going to have two black coaches, a matchup of two black coaches, one of whom would be moving on to the national championship game, first time that we've seen that at the highest level of college football, and that one of them, obviously the winner, would have the opportunity to win and thus become the first black head coach to win a national title at this level. And when the two coaches did their press conference, folks remember, and the question was posed, well, even running up to the press conference, the question was posed to the coaches. And for a long time running, and given that Coach James Franklin of Penn State is senior to Marcus Freeman, Coach Freeman, he has more played into the racial dynamic of wanting to be the first black head coach to win a national championship. Okay. Now, I don't know the full ethnicity of Coach Franklin. Okay. Many people believe that he is of biracial stock and all that, so I haven't done that thorough a background to him. He's identifying as a black or African American man, irrespective of if he is biracial. By all appearances, he fits fits the profile of a biracial person. You know, his phenotype and all that. But irrespective, how he identifies himself as black African American, and take pride in that. And so he, like I said, has been very forward, outgoing to the fact that he is pursuing that. That's a point of his pursuits. That's one of his goals as a coach, is wanting to put his stamp in history as the first black head coach to win a national championship. Obviously, that's not going to happen this year. So if it's not happening this year, and if Marcus Freeman wins, because obviously Notre Dame beat Penn State, then he would be that. But let me stop there, because again, what I want to focus to is Coach Freeman, particularly since he is in this position heading into this national championship game. And this video, while this video will be available for a long time, the greater focus of it is, should we, as fans of sports, of anything in entertainment or whatever the case may be, still be focused on the first this, first that, and all these sort of landmarks in what are just recognized greatness as it is. And that's not going to be a unanimous anything. So you're always going to have different camps who are going to want to celebrate the first of this and first of that, and others who will just take it as great and in its context to what it is. And so the similitude of that is that you see the two coaches basically position point themselves in that such a way. When the two coaches had their press conference, just again leading up to this, as you would have heard, Coach Franklin emphasized just what I just said earlier, how he takes honor to that. He wants to be one of the first coaches to win the national championship, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. While Coach Freeman has one recognized his biracial heritage. He is half Black American and half Korean American. And so he recognizes this dual heritage. He embraces it. It's who he is. And he really wants to be recognized as such. He doesn't want to be divisive of his heritage one way or the other. And he celebrates it that way. That's what he has been trying to convey to the media, especially, to understand about him and the type of person who he is, to refute these racialized media agenda points that they are trying to push on these narratives that he is not taking the bait on. Okay, he simply wants to focus to his team. He has said that repeatedly, that it's about the team, it's about the university, it's about the folks who really make what has gotten this team there. It wouldn't matter one iota, and just as an interpretation of him, that him putting his race first out there, and you're not winning anything, okay? Because that's not going to win games. Your race is not going to win games. It's the effort, it's the work, it's the commitment, it's the discipline, and it's all these things, these qualities that go into it that will help his team win the game, his coaching and all the other stuff. So while it's nice and it's cute for the media to want to play up to the whole first Black coach thing, they need to take a step back and honor to who he is within his heritage. Is not just Black. He's also Korean, and he mentioned about, not just if they won, he would be the first Black coach, but he'd be the first Asian, coach, as far as we know. There could have been someone with some Asian heritage before, but not as widely publicized, let's say. So, certainly probably the first Korean person, if that. So, and that's something that I truly respect about him. And anyone, particularly when it comes to heritage and culture and so forth, as we have seen with Heisman candidates and Heisman winners who've honored their heritages as well, and in the past, and what have you. And so Coach Freeman also, did excellent when it came to addressing the media when they posed these questions about what would it feel like being the first Black coach and all that. And he has to nip it in the bud right away. Well, you have to remember I'm also Asian too. I'm a Korean. And, and just, digging at them to the fact that don't diss me for, while you want to acknowledge that part, but I'm more than that, putting them in their place to let them know he's more than just a Black man, that he's also part Korean man too, and that's in him as much as his Blackness. So, but beyond that, he just wants to be respected as a man, period. For what he does, because again, his race and his heritage has nothing to do with his coaching. Those are just interpersonal characteristics, but the talent and skills and things that relate to his coaching has to do with his talent and skills and abilities to coach and lead young men to victory, okay, in games and stuff. And so, and this is should be a big learning lesson for the media. And this is something that I get into. This is my wheelhouse. I'm a race and ethnic educator, and so this is my wheelhouse. And oftentimes I have to point out certain things in the culture about the terminology and the labeling that we use when it comes to racial, ethnic identities to people, and how they're misused. So I will have some forthcoming videos pertaining to that. So you can check those out upcoming. Just subscribe and follow me and all that, and you can stay tapped into that when I produce those. But yes, so the terminology such as African American, for example, okay. First and foremost, this is not a term that is a wholesale term applied to all peoples in America who are of African descent and are either considered to be Black American, because those two things do not equate to the same, Black American and African American. Okay, they appear similarly. They're used interchangeably, but they're not equivalent in terms of the way that there's the people who identify to those things, because there are a multitude of people who identify as Black American, Foundational American, ADOS, etc., who do not use the term African American. Okay. And then there are those who use the term African American while they might secondarily use Black American, okay, and they interchange those two. Now, a lot of it, again, it's about first education, okay. People don't, again, they have a lot of these terms just been thrown out there for so many years. People don't even really study it to understand what do they mean and how they've been used and this and that and the other, and so forth. And then they're just comfortable just interchanging the terms, although people, that's not how they would identify. So every time I hear that and I see this African American person, well, how do you know that person identifies as African American? Are their heritage is that? They're just guessing to the point of this person being African American, and that might not be how they identify. And there are celebrities who are becoming more public in that they're emphatic to, I'm Black, I'm not African American, and particularly if you're not born in America or heritage from America, you're people from the island somewhere, or Europe or wherever outside of the United States, particularly. And then you have folks who, like I said, just do not connect to that term. And there's a history and tied to that. So, for example, again, even if you take the composite group, you can say that Black, because that's a term that, again, is more universal to people melanated, but even there's a whole breakdown even to what that even means, because again, we're talking about a color. And so by color definition, if you're saying, okay, these people Black, well, that applies to a whole bunch of people who don't identify as Black, but they would qualify under the color hue spectrum to what Black is. So all these things have to be broken down, decoded in a proper way, so that we understand, which we really shouldn't be using these terms. Again, terms have just been thrown out there and labeled on people erroneously and incorrectly. And so I'm glad that Coach Freeman has pushed back and refuted the media for trying to use this agenda of race in a way in which he isn't comfortable buying into, and he rejects it. Okay, just flat out rejects it, and that's a good thing for him. And it's an education for the world, and particularly the media, not to just let him, let him sort of have his own way in which the way he wants first to identify himself, and then secondly, use the platform if he wants to advocate with that. Need not the media doing it for him, because you're going to get a wake-up call about some things that don't necessarily apply. Would they do that do they make a big deal of Patrick Mahomes' race? He's biracial. Do they say that he's the first black quarterback to win multiple Super Bowls? Do they say that about Patrick Mahomes? I don't follow the NFL all that much, so I'm not in that media space like that, but someone tell me, do they do that? I don't think so. I haven't heard that, and so forth. Even when he won, I mean, he wasn't the first black quarterback. That was Doug Williams, but he has won multiple Super Bowls. And has there been now again, Patrick Mahomes biracial black, so what has been his race question? Do they ask him, does he identify as biracial? Does he identify as black? Or African American? Do they pose that question? Because a lot of times, the media, again, they want to know some of these folks' heritage, and some of them do not like that question. They don't want to get into that. We've seen that with Aaron Judge of the New York Yankees, the home run hitting superstar, for the Yankees. He has dodged the race question, and there's been others. I mean, you can go on to Jeter, Derek Jeter, what's his name, A-Rod, Alex Rodriguez. There's been a lot of folks who have biracial, mixed race, racially ambiguous identity and so forth, and people want to know, and where do you fall? Because this is how America is when it comes to race. They want to know, they want to pick at you and say, what are you exactly? Are you this or are you that? Particularly as it relates to black and white. The other ethnicities, not so much. But when the black and white, if they hint to you, you're white passing, or you have some sort of exotic ethnic identity to you, then they want to know with specificity, what are you? Okay, and if you become a public person, even more so, their curiosity is there to wanting to know, and it's quite easily visible that by characteristic wise that Coach Freeman, has some black Afrocoid feature types to him. Okay, so like I said, in 90+% of the time, people are not just putting their race tag out there. I'm this, I'm that. They're just like a lot of people, just living their life through their lived experience, and then it comes up, someone, and I'm glad, like I said, to see what Coach Freeman has done and has presented him, how he has presented himself, and I would like to see more of that with many of these athletes, because I do relationships, a show called Relationships Unfiltered. Also on my channel, you can see some of those videos, and I just did one on interracial relationships. And so, and I will be discussing within that. It's a series of episodes on interracial relationships, and I'm going to tackle into black athletes, black men, and white women, and since that's the one that so many folks like to talk so much about, and that whole dynamic. And so, often what you see with a lot of these players, especially when it comes to the drafts, like the NBA and the NFL, you see a lot of these black ball players. First off, you see the biracial ones with their white mamas and usually black dads. And then you have, second to that, you have the black athletes there with their white girlfriend or whoever, sitting right with them. And, with a bunch of melanated folks there. And why she's there. So you see that and everything. And so that's something that one of the topic points that I discuss in that show there. But I'll have a special edition one for the sports realm folks forthcoming as well too. But again, just to give a wrap up on what I have covered here about Coach Freeman, applaud to him that he has so poignantly set the record straight with the media as it relates to him being a black Korean or a Korean black man, biracial man, and not just a black man, and certainly not we went through this with Vice President Kamala Harris, right? And her identity, her Asian and Jamaican heritage. And I did some postings on that. But again, it's another one. And like I said, you not two things that look similar or more are not the same. Okay? And when it comes to the equation of black, like I said, that's a whole different formula than saying someone's African American. So just to kind of reset that once more, okay, for folks to get it, okay, and that African American in and of its designate, for those who identify to that, is not necessarily the most accurate description, because now it might have sounded good back in the day when folks, but again, the people, because of the history and everything, whether they were folks who were taken through the transatlantic slave trade and brought here, and then again, once you get here, your racial cultural identity also can change, okay? And therefore, so you must start with, how do the people identify? You can't go back and do this revisionist history and change their identity for them when you're speaking for a people who need not be spoken for, okay? And the way they identify, and then their subsequent descendants in the further generations, how they chose to identify and how they choose to identify because of that. And so you have a person who comes from Nigeria or Ghana or Kenya or wherever, they have a nationality. And many of those folks identify according to their nationality. They don't identify necessarily to African, because that doesn't mean much, especially in the homeland over there in Africa, in the continent of Africa, because Africa is not a country like people should know, but some folks still seem to miss that part. So, of geography. And so, so then you have to also understand that, that there's a unique ethno-cultural identity, history embodied into the people that we look at as Black Americans. Okay, that's a different mix, and it's not the same as those folks who live on the continent of Africa and the various countries within their cultures and all that stuff that they have over there. While in phenotype, those folks are the same. It's the same thing as a white American and a European, equating them to being the same when they're not. You know, we don't refer to white Americans as European Americans. You know, if you say a European American, that would be someone who is from Europe, right? But we don't refer to the average white American as a European American. We just say they're white American. And why is that? But when it comes to black people, you know, we throw in this tag to African American. And like I said, we're in the age of really an ethno emancipation, an ethno sense of pride of one's reclaiming of self and heritage, and self-determination to that, so that they don't have to ascribe to other people's, ethnonyms on them, okay? And the descriptors. And that's a good thing. And that's a salute to Coach Freeman that hopefully will set a precedence for moving forward with people to understand. And a disintegration of this whole body identity marker that applies labels on people who do not identify to that. And some people, they might be more vocal to it than others, which is also understandable. And so, but there needs to be further education brought into the picture of this, so people can get it and not conflate the terms the way they do, because again, it's not accurate. Okay, and there needs to be clarity brought to that equation, so people can understand. It's like I instruct my students about. First you need to find out, ask the person, go to the source. How do they choose to identify? They might simply just say, I identify as an American. Okay, they don't even go into the ethnic parts of their identity and heritage, and so they'll just say, I'm an American. Okay, that's American, and that needs to be acceptable. Simple as that. So then, therefore, it takes away the racial context to narrative, and you have no more story to go on. Just look at it as the person. And like I said, others might be more pronounced about their racial ethnicity, which is fine too. If that's how they want to roll, then that's fine. But again, like I said, the problem comes in where people take one and they apply it to all, and it doesn't jive that way, because that's why when we look at the world and wars and stuff, this is a big part of the reason why that happens, because you have these overlapping types of ethnicities and cultures, and trying to bring that under one umbrella and then sort of acculturating people to one type of culture doesn't work. That doesn't work like that. So there you go. All right, so I'm going to stop here, but I just wanted to have my little say about this issue relating to the race of Freeman, Coach Freeman. Let me get it right. Speaking of which, Coach Freeman, and the fact that this man has put the media in its place as relating to his race identity, and they should take note to that moving forward in the way in which they answer that question. Now, I don't necessarily blame the reporters in themselves, because we know they got a producer in their ear with that little plug they have like this here, and there might be baited with those questions, because they got a job to do, and the producers and the folks want to push that. So they're only doing what they're instructed to do many times, okay? Because reporters are right there on the ground, and they can have these conversations off the record, not in an interview, not in the media, not before cameras and all that other stuff. Having coffee on the side, they can have those conversations ahead of time and clear all that to know, and then just leave it alone and just keep moving. And they do that with certain folks because some people, like I said, they're emphatic about they're not going to entertain that question, so don't go barking up that tree with that, because you're not going to get anything out of it. Like I said, there's been a number of folks, public people, who have dodged around the race ethnicity question, and some of them at their own pace come into their realization about it and all that at given points in time, and what have you, because there are plenty of folks who are passing, racially passing, and what have you. But anyway, so that's my take to that. So again, folks, appreciate you checking in on my channel. Be sure to hit the like button. Please share the video. Hope it was some good food for some folks and understanding a few things. And again, this salute goes to Coach Freeman, Notre Dame, and Coach Franklin as well too. Want to not be dismissive of him, because again, he has been a really good coach in college football, and he takes pride again in his racial identity and heritage of how he identifies. But that doesn't mean that someone else has to also identify exactly to that and have to be as a flag waver for their race, the way one other person does. To each their own and how they want to do it. Different strokes for different folks. But again, saluting to both coaches for outstanding seasons and getting as far as they were able to get to at this point in time, and continue to be. So again, for seasons to come, hopefully this will be a non-issue. That we have to, which we know by the media standards it won't. Whenever that is, whether it's this year, whether it's years from now, that someone who has some partial or half or full black identity to them, whatever the case may be, that it will be less of a media talking point. Okay, and with that, I'm going to stop here. You folks enjoy yourself again. Don't forget to hit that like button. Please, please, please hit that up and share. And I'll see you here next time, and be well. Thank you.